We are in front of the icon called Dodecaorton, or 12 feasts. It is the icon type of Christ in the middle, Christ Pantocrator, or from the resurrection or from descent into Hades, surrounded by 12 scenes from his life. This particular icon is very important to me personally, because it is not just the encapsulation of the core of Christianity, but also a summation of my 50 years iconographic practice. It took me days and days to think about how would I go about this project, how would I execute it, how it should look like, what are the considerations. I knew that what I wanted, at least, and that is the sense of unity and harmony, of togetherness of those 12 miniature icons surrounding the main icon of Christ Pantocrator in the middle. They are all very, very different in their narrative context, but yet very theatrical, very dramatic. But yet I had to find a common thread, a commonality that would maybe or hopefully run through the whole thing. This is an icon, so this is not an illustration of a Bible in the Western sense of the word. So with icons we are talking mysticism, we are talking otherness, we are talking the hints and suggestions of otherworldly, or some realm that basically icons always try to hint, to suggest, to even depict. I drew on my own heritage and my knowledge of Serbian monasteries and glorious medieval art in Serbia. We are talking 13th, 14th, 15th century. When I divided the board, which is 1 meter by 70 centimeters here, those segments were too elongated. I devised a semi-arch, identical semi-arches for the 12 segments, and one different one for the main icon of Christ Pantocrator. Icons ought to have, even when we paint Christ, Mary, Mother of God, place their inscriptions, their initials. Now, traditionally, the mother language for icons was Greek. Firstly, we have here the Annunciation. Then the Nativity of our Lord. We have the Baptism of Christ. The first of his miracles, the wedding at Cana. Then the multiplication of loaves and fishes. Christ walking on the water is usually depicted as Christ saving Peter from the water. Raising of Lazarus. The Transfiguration. Entry into Jerusalem. The Crucifixion. The myrrh-bearing women by the tomb of Christ. And finally, the Holy Trinity. The central figure, the focal point, is the image of Christ Pantocrator, the famous 6th century or 7th century Christ for Mount Sinai, from the monastery of Saint Catherine. It was repainted in the 13th century. What we have today is this. This is how the icon looks now. We hardly see any kind of highlights. Some glimpses, some hints in the hair, almost nothing in the garment, himation, almost nothing in the chiton, undergarment and cloak or cape if you like. When contemporary iconographers deal with this icon, they usually come up with something like this. That means that they opt for depicting these garments and even his hair as dark areas, dark blobs without much happening within. So I wanted to basically show what can be done with what you have at hand and kind of redo it, restructure the icon and reconstruct the icon, basically is the right way to call it, in the way it should have been done maybe centuries later. One other thing is the Christ's halo in the original icon. As you can see, as you can observe, it is rather simple. So I came up with this particular halo of Christ, wherein I also played with different types of gold. The background is 24 carats gold. There is a stripe here, wider stripe, 23 carats gold, and the very narrow one is 22 carats gold. Another element was the enormity, the oversize of the book or the gospel that Christ holds. I decided to keep the book size-wise, just kind of redo certain things in the otherwise quite simple book cover, and also because the point of this icon are basically two things. Two things make this icon the most popular icon of Christ of all times. One is his famous gaze, with his asymmetrical eyes. Basically, it is just a very clever play with pupils of the eye that even are explained by some people as the dualism of Christ's natures. Retain that size of the book because basically these are the hallmarks of that particular icon.